on my desk in Dubai.
You can't see it.
Do you have you sent me once access to like a data room?
Database? Yeah, I have that. I pulled it up. Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to ask, I think we can record conversations with this and we can ask him questions about his childhood. If you want to ask him anything.
Oral history project.
I did this with my grandma. I asked her, so for example, what do you remember about
Listen to
your...
this. Oral history project.
What do you remember about your... Did you know your grandparents?
No, never knew.
Never knew them.
They passed away.
They passed away. Now, what do you remember about your dad?
Everything.
Well, tell us about your dad.
He wasn't a tall man.
He was a tall...
About 5'6", 5'7".
Yeah.
I think he was a devoted man, workaholic. He worked very hard. He wanted to be self-employed. He was the kind of guy that cared for the church. He served on the church board. I wouldn't describe him as the kind of guy that hugs you, and we weren't that type of family.
So he's like you.
But his love shown for caring for his family.
Uh-huh.
As a businessman, in fact, I was talking to you. I think many times you got to remember this man never went beyond second grade. He was a sheep herder.
Wow.
In those days, you went up on the mountain and stayed for 2 months. You stayed with the sheep, the flocks of sheep. So, can you imagine? Well, I got to retract. What if they gave you $100,000 today? How about that? And they said you fly to Australia and start a new life. Would you be apprehensive? I would be.
Right.
I'd be, wow, who's in Australia? So they came over here. If you check the ship, we found the ship. He was in steerage. He was in, you see the Titanic for a second? He was on the bottom line. He had
the Titanic?
Wait, so you gave
like
him the
the
money?
Titanic, he was in the bottom.
first class, second class, steerage class. The poor people know.
Who gave him the money to come over?
That I don't know, but there was no rich uncle in it. They probably accumulated a little to send something. So when you landed in those days, you just didn't get off New York and start walking around. To get off the ship, you had to say where you're going to go. And the Kachivas family in Moline, they're from Homataro.
Okay.
They're from what? Wait, the what?
They're from Homataro, which is the town they were from. The Kachivas.
Where you were baptized.
And how did he know that they were in Moline?
Did he know?
You were baptized in the same town.
No, but I mean, like, Homataro translated means village, right?
No, it means dirt.
No,
It means dirt.
Wait, but Papi,
It means the dirt.
how did your dad
In Greek.
know that there was a Greek family in Moline?
Well, you could write letters.
Okay.
People know. So he came to Moline, got off the depot, and lived here. 2 years later, he brought Louis.
Oh, he brought his brother.
2 years later, he brought Jimmy. So the three brothers lived here. The two, my dad and Louis, were in business together. He came in 1906 during the First World War. He had a grocery store in Moline downtown, doing very well. And they had a little truck. They call it Kalamata. So the little truck they deliver.
What was the address of the store?
It was along the factories where John Deere was.
What was the name of the store?
That I don't know. The later store was People's Cash Grocery.
People's what?
Cash Grocery.
People's Cash Grocery.
All right, to make a long story short.
Is this the same grocery store?
After the war, he had lost that business, and he came to East Moline. And then, in the meantime, my mother had come from Greece later. And she had stayed with her sister. Remember I told you when I was in the village?
Yes.
And I saw her older sister.
Okay.
And she was in East Moline. So my mother got off, and she almost got killed. The train really stops in Moline, but this was January. She told it was below zero. It was cold, and the train stopped in East Moline and left her off. She was all alone out there, and there was another train coming. Boom, blew her, and she was frightened, and she walked up across where Sam Skopidis' office is, and there was a Greek guy who rushed her, and she said, "I'm Elena from Greek." She didn't talk English, and she said, "My sister is Mrs. Frank Bredis." Well, she lived about 2 blocks away, so they took her over to the house, and then in the meantime, the uncle of Bredis, they had gone to Moline to pick her up, but the train never stopped.
Oh, well, so they didn't know she was
They
here.
came back and they said, her sister, "We can't find Rebecca. Where is she?" "Here she is." They said. But to make a long story short, my dad was delivering groceries. So he would go to Bredis' house. You saw my mother, and he said, "Oh, that was a good chick." Anyway, and in those days, there's my mother, like 22, 23. You had to get married. You didn't run around.
So your mom is Rebecca Brothers.
So they said,
Yeah.
"You want this guy that does this? You want this guy? Or do you want Vasily? He's a grocer. You can eat him good." "Well, I'll take the grocer guy I can eat." See?
Wow.
That's the way people got married.
She
Even
chose
today,
him
when
because that
But
way
she
she
chose
could
the
eat.
groceries
So anyway,
she could eat, but
the thing about my dad, and I told Todd that today, he wanted to be his own boss. Now, I had a brother, Chris, that died before Bill, and then my dad settled on that store on 3rd Street, and it was a porch. Well, my dad went to work to make food to the Moline Iron Works, but he didn't like it. So after a while, he took the glass and he enclosed the front and put a few groceries in. The first day he came back, he said to Rebecca, I always remember, "We're Rebecca, my mother." He said, "How did we do today?" She pulled out a dime. So we took in 15 cents. Great,
So that's how he started the store.
And then Dorothy was born, and then George, then I came along. In the meantime, see,
Wow.
we grew up in the grocery business as little guys. I remember I'd go out or something, people would say, what is it you would want or like? I says, "You'd never believe this." "What?" I said, "I'm living room hungry." Living room hungry? What the heck is that? We never lived in a home. Up, down, up, down. We were never in a home together. Like the grocery store was open 7 days a week.
Oh, so he was always having people coming, or he was delivering things, or he was.
No, and that store we didn't deliver anymore.
Oh,
That was
okay.
a neighborhood. But what I mean is, he was working. We'd go to school. We'd help at night. My mother would be working. My sister would be working.
So he was never home. The family was
Oh, no,
never
we were
together.
home.
The
The
family was
grocery
never
store-
together all the
The
time.
grocery store was there.
Yeah.
wait, Papu.
But-
Your dad, so Uncle Louis, he is half brothers with your dad.
Well, all right, there's a different mother.
So wait,
Yeah,
why did you
different
ever tell us that you had a brother that died? Yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely failed to mention that my whole
Baby,
17 years.
baby.
It's a baby.
He was a baby,
he was like
that
6
happened.
It's
months.
like a stillborn.
But anyway,
Or died in infancy.
so we went to Greek school, we went to American school, we played sports, we did this, but we grew up with that atmosphere. I went in the Navy at 17. My brother went in the Air Force. We come back after the war. He goes to college. I go 2 years to school. But Todd was asking me, or Paul, we still wanted to do something, We weren't happy just going to school. So then we decided to go in a sporting business.
That's when, so what about? Let's go back. What do you remember about your mom?
Very caring, very religious, a very good lady, very educated.
Really?
Yeah.
She came here educated, or she got educated here?
No, over there.
Really?
But she read all the time. she deciphered letters from the other Greek people. A lot of people would get letters from Greece, but your grandmother could read them. They'd bring them over to the house.
Wow.
Yeah, she was Tony's, Mary's mother, Mary's grandmother.
Oh yeah.
I met her, but she was not educated lady.
No, she was illiterate in Greek and English.
She couldn't read at all.
No, she couldn't.
Yeah, I know.
So that's your parents. What's your earliest memory? What was it like being a child here? What were your earliest memories of that?
From kindergarten on. We never remember the Depression.
Yeah.
Well, we had a grocery store, so we ate good. You know,
You were fine in the Depression.
Yeah. Oh, we were poor. We shared. I was the second guy. George got the new shoes. I got the used shoes. I was the second guy. And my sister was a very good lady. You know, she worked. She always. But I think we were a religious family, a caring family. And we did in school pretty good. You know what I mean? So, what else can I add?
Yeah, what else can you say?
What did Daphne do?
But the only thing I could add is this. When it came time that we were going to go to sporting goods, my brother selected a name.
What was the sporting goods store called?
Sportsland.
Sportsland.
I was thinking this the other day. When we were going to open up, I looked at a store in downtown East Moline, and the guy that owned the building wanted $150 a month rent. And we were sitting in front of the grocery store, my brother and I, and this guy. And we said, we really cannot. That's too much rent. And he cut the rent to $135. So the deal was done at $135 instead of $150.
Wow.
Now later on, as our business grew and all that, we were paying on obligations $14,000 a month payments.
Whoa.
And I thought, wow, $135 was a month. So you see, that's what I try to tell Todd today. The fun is making it grow.
Yeah.
Making it real.
So what was your question?
What did your sister Dorothy do for a living? How you said
She worked at a jewelry store.
Oh really?
Yeah.
What did she die of again?
Breast cancer.
Yeah.
Breast cancer?
No. Women.
Tuberculosis, right?
Female problem.
What?
Oh, female.
What was your dad's first job here?
First job, the railroad. They all worked on the railroad. Mary's.
So how did he get into the grocery store?
Because he
wanted to be his own boss.
Well, a lot of Greeks are in the restaurant business, and he wanted to do it. It's an easy way to get in business. You know, everybody has to eat.
But you said like they come here, they have no family, no nothing. How did he even get a job in the railroad?
Well, you can get jobs, railroad.
No, but he knew a family.
Everybody worked on a railroad.
No, but what family did he know in Moline from the home?
Well, the Kachivas, there are people from their village. Like me, let's say I'm in Moline, I want to go to Australia. I got a buddy in Melbourne. You go find him, but there was jobs different then,
Well, usually a lot of times you would just show up and you can get a job. Yeah.
So when you were little, did you go to Greek school, Papu?
Did I? Yeah.
You did?
I remember.
Probably very similar.
My Uncle Jim was comical. I said, how did you learn English? Well, you didn't go to school. You hamburger. And I remember he said, this one girl came in and she said, I want peas. And he said, peas? This? No. Peas? No. Peas? Yes. Peas. See?
That's how he learned English.
Repetition. Wow. Now my mother, when you backtrack to her, she was a good worker. She worked at the grocery store.
Who learned English like that?
Yeah, that's the way it is. You look at life with big book and all that. These people were poor. They made $1 a day.
Who learned English like that?
His dad.
Was that your dad you were talking about?
What?
That did peas.
My Uncle Jim.
Oh, Uncle Jim.
Dimitri?
Jim.
Okay.
But Papu, your mom must have been from an educated family if she was like a rich family too? Then?
Your grandmother? No, they're
No.
poor people.
But
No,
how
my
did you
great-
schooling?
Your mother.
Yeah.
My mother came from a poor family.
But you said she was educated as in self-educated?
Yeah,
or?
reading and all that. A lot of
Okay.
people did. Yeah, they didn't have school.
So did your
back then.
parents speak English?
Did her parents what?
Did your parents speak English?
No. Who spoke English? My mother even got off the boat, didn't know.
A little bit.
No, not from Greece.
Not from the cake killer.
Did they speak English in the home when you were growing up?
Well, my mother,
Your mom and dad?
they did what?
Did they speak English in the home when you were growing up?
That's how we learned Greek. Greek.
That's how you learn the swear words probably too. When you
No,
know
when
the
you
state.
walked in the door. Take on you. See, when you walked in the door over here, you say, "Hey, Mom, what food? What faya are we eating today?" I spoke English and Greek. That's the way a lot of second generations spoke. My mother and father spoke Greek, but after the years. But the old man was shrewd. He showed me his bank books in the 30s. He was making $2,000 or $3,000.
In the 30s?
Yeah.
So did you learn how to drive when you were a teenager?
That way.
Did you learn how to drive?
I never had a car until I was 21. Then George and I, we shared it.
Did
There
you?
was no car.
Oh.
Yeah. So they didn't teach you how to drive when you were a teenager?
No,
You rode a
no,
bike?
we didn't have a car.
And so nobody had a car?
We walked to school, we took the bus. I had a Model A Ford, a Model T. Ernie Vazikas, I and Johnny Schaefer bought a car for $15.
50.
A Model T. I wish I had that car.
Oh, yeah,
Anyway,
one
we didn't know how to
$15.
drive. Ernie Vazikas. We're down the alley driving, and he had a pole. You know.
Yeah, right, with the
And
$15
he
car.
jumps on the car, runs home crying. And his sister Tina, she went to California. She called, "What's the idea of trying to get my brother killed?" tell you how the Greeks. See, in those days, in the 30s and 40s, people weren't transit. In other words, I can tell you, Scrivanas, Costadelas, Vozikas, Condas, Bagatellas, Tertipas, Stavros. See what I mean? I took you down 4 blocks of 15th Avenue. There was Greek people, Belgian people, French people. You see what I mean? But people then didn't move.
Right.
You know, people were poor, so you grow up with the same guys all the time. So
And then
when I
their
go,
kids would grow up together?
yeah, when I go down 15th Avenue, I'm thinking, you know, Journey, this guy, that guy, that guy.
Right.
They had rough neighborhoods because we were from 3rd Street. They had the 3rd Street gang, the 2nd Street gang, the 1st Street gang. And I remember I was over on 2nd Street and they pounced on me, pushed me down, took my pants off.
Took your pants off?
They call it repantser. They threw your pants up on top of a pole.
Wait, what would they?
Naked?
Wait, what would they call it?
Pantsing
So
you.
you ran home
Dancing.
crying.
We did
Oh,
that
they
in-
took my pants. So they'd catch you, you know. These bigger guys, they weren't bad guys, but they were mean guys. So,
You got jumped. It jumped in pants.
but
Wow.
you could really see America when I grew up because they were all first generation French. And
Right.
we had got a lot of Belgians there. Big community of Belgians.
So, did you and Uncle George start Summit Ridge when Dorothy was alive?
When who was alive? Dorothy?
Birthday boy.
Yeah,
For only 2 more hours.
but not. She died when we were building
August
the building.
24th or 23rd.
When you were building it? I never
In the box.
Anyway, she, you know, typical Greek
The cabinet,
church
a little bit.
building.
Very good.
Oh, in the kitchen. What's in the kitchen?
Well, thank you. Well,
August 24th.
I'm going to make this into a.
Yeah.
You got on,
Yeah.
somebody would be listening. Say, get the hell off the line.
Wait, what? How would it
You might
work?
be talking to a girl. The other guy's listening. You could hear that.
No.
Then the guy said, "Get the hell off the line! I want to use the telephone." There was no.
It was a party line. Did you ever hear of a party line?
Yeah.
So it
So
would
you would
ring
just
like
pick up the phone.
it would ring like 5 or 6 or 8 houses, and your house would have a different ring than the other people's. So if it was 2 rings, it was their house. 3 rings, it was this.
I would have no idea.
So people would listen in.
Snelling Avenue.
Our first phone number was
From
969.
the airport going, I don't think.
That was
Well,
our
the movie
first.
that
969.
I didn't remember the part.
And they'd you'd call somebody, you would call the operator, and then they'd plug it in, right?
The operator would plug in. But I knew a couple of the girls said, "Chad, is that you?" "Yeah, cool." The girl, "How you doing, cool?" "Okay, you know, you're talking to police, you can give me that number." You know.
So that's why when you say the line is busy,
Oh,
that's because the operator was.
Was already plugging it in.
Oh, I didn't know that. You know when you say the line is busy? You know when you say the line is busy? So back in the day, it was when the operator.
But you know, you take it for granted,
Spring never broke.
and they don't.
Back in the day, you would call the operator.
And I don't. So that's what's so interesting
You plug
about
you in
this.
literally with a line of cable.
They take it for granted what they got.
I know.
Like it's entitled.
Like the phone,
Spring almost happened with
you know, so much is different with the phone now than then.
That was pretty cool.
But that's long, Nico.
The phone.
But anyway, so I'd go down there on the
Today you pick up the phone.
3 days or whatever.
Well, when I was in Greece,
So I've seen her a lot.
when I went down with Todd
I
in
was there Memorial
'72,
weekend, and then
we had to go to the Korongi and take my, remember that young sister? And then talk to my mother in '72. There was no phones,
and then she'll be
and that's the
back out
first time my mother had
She'll be
talked
out
to
for about
her
5 or 6 days
she left
for business.
for America.
She's coming to work.
Wow.
Today you pick up the phone, "Hey, how you doing from Dubai?"
Not only that, you can do video chatting and Skype.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can see that person, right? But
that
not.
is crazy.
They
Like she
didn't-
hadn't talked to her for 40 years.
No kids in Greece in their houses. Do they have electricity?
If we didn't have it over here, they sure didn't have it over there.
You didn't have electricity?
I did, but 10 years before me did.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You didn't have running water in a lot of places. You know, we used to take a bath. We used to take a bath. You always heard Saturday night is the night to take a bath.
He lived by you, I remember that. Yeah.
We used to take a bath about once a week.
In the river or no?
How would you?
Wait,
Yeah, how'd you? Yeah, how'd you?
You said you had no electricity.
We'd take a big,
Kids, right?
yeah, like this. Fill it with hot water.
But there's no running water, you said.
Where would you get the
Oh,
water?
we had running water.
Oh, you did have running water.
Yeah, running water.
Okay, but no,
We
like
had electricity.
Oh, but 10 years, okay.
From the First World War, a lot of them didn't. They didn't have toilets. You'd have the outhouse. You'd have to go back to the outhouse.
Right, that's a good.
But we would take a bath like once or twice a week.
or you fill up the
Yeah,
stuff.
fill it up and then empty the thing, pull more water. I remember when we got our first bathtub, that was a big thrill. To have a bathtub. Then we could fill the tub. This way, my mother would take care. So you'd sit on the end of the tub, wash your feet, and she'd wash your hair.
And then empty it, and then your brother get in. And,
Do you think your parents loved each other?
How do you define that with the old fix of it?
that's hard to.
There was dedication,
It was what?
dedication.
Dedication.
You took the vow to get married, happy or not happy, you stayed married. And I always remember reading, if you're a woman in 1910 and your husband came home and said, "I want a divorce, I'm getting out of here," that woman probably would have fell prostrate on the ground, screaming, "How am I going to live?" Remember?
Yeah.
How would she live? There was no big divorce decree and pay alimony. So she stuck around to eat. And he stuck around because she cleaned the house.
And gave him babies.
Yeah, and gave him babies.
So, well, she asked if the parents loved each other, and he's saying it's hard to define as different back then.
There was a respect for each other.
But I mean, love is not a new thing. It existed
Well,
before.
you're looking at the movies, and
No, it's a feeling, Papa.
don't you?
It's not a new thing.
But I don't know, but I think some married couples loved each other and some didn't.
Yeah.
It was kind of a crapshoot.
My mother and father weren't the kind of people that I saw holding hands.
And we were temporary.
I never saw.
But that's different because Yaya,
Yeah.
my dad's grandmother, my Yaya's mom.
Yeah.
Apparently
They
did.
they were arranged marriage, but they fell in love.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, so it was different. Some different. It's kind of like that now. There's some families that stay together and they don't love each other,
That's when I joined the fraternity.
but they stay together for the
This was
kids.
kind of fun. It was
Yeah.
So the first time you went to Greece was when you were in the Navy?
Those guys were there and like all this.
I told Bob that story.
Yeah.
1947.
So there were so many of your cousins that you just didn't know.
No, how would I know?
Yeah.
Nobody wrote anything. Nobody knew it. There was a war on it.
Ramon Mendoza.
Remember there was a war.
I told him.
See, there was no airplanes. Nobody traveled to Europe.
Yeah, so.
Remember the airplanes came in the 50s.
Yeah.
You had to use the ship.
Well, the rich did. They,
No, nobody flew there.
no, but they took, they shipped.
They took the ship. The poor guy took a ship too. He was down below.
Summer internship jobs.
But what year were you born in?
1927. Two big things happened in 1927.
Lindbergh.
Lindbergh flew there.
And first motion
And Ted
picture.
Bagatelle was
And Babe Ruth hit 61 home runs. Soldier Field was built, and Gene Tunney and the other guy fought.
Oh,
Gene Tunney.
Joe.
Gene Tooney and the long con.
Yeah.
And in 1948, when I came out of the Navy, Babe Ruth died that day. I saw him.
Really?
First time in the history of the art.
Some of the things you saw. You're not going to go home.
A lot of memories, huh, Bob?
It's good.